Here we go, Las Vegas, at 12 noon on this Monday, the 11th, 2026. Welcome to Nighttime at Noon on Fox Sports Las Vegas, broadcasting live from City National Arena in downtown Summerlin, inside Studio 31, alongside the Golden Knights insider Gary Lawless. I'm Dan D'Uva. It's a Stanley Cup playoff edition of Nighttime at Noon. Gary, good afternoon. How are you today?
You look very handsome today, Dan.
Is it because of what I'm wearing?
Yes.
Okay, For those listening on the radio, you cannot see Gary and I are matching today. We've got our fancy Golden Knights 2026 Stanley Cup Playoffs quarter zip, and I walked through the arsenal downstairs. I am very impressed once again by all the merch available that they have here at City National Arena. You got to get them while you can.
Yes, they have people that have high fashion taste, unlike you and I.
Right. No, we just put it on.
Yeah.
We don't design it or choose it.
We got to qualify this.
Okay.
We wait for them to give it to us. Shows up on our desk as a staff giveaway, and then, yes, we put it on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it is that time of year, and lucky for you and me and other members of the Golden Knights staff, we've got plenty of Golden Knights playoff memorabilia and merchandise from over the years. Mm-hmm. It is incredible, Gary, that the Knights have played more Stanley Cup playoff games than any franchise since Vegas came into the league 17-18.
And even more amazing is that they've won more games than any other franchise since
stands to reason.
Since 17-18. Well,
the more you play, the more you have the opportunity to win.
You have to win to play all those games. So, yes, Mr. Mathematician, you're correct. I said we were going to start an argument for some good radio. I didn't know it was going to be you.
That's radio. It was game 116, and number 117 will be tomorrow. Knights' all-time playoff record is 68-48, and going into this series, the best games points percentage in the Stanley Cup playoffs, neck and neck with the Edmonton Oilers over their history.
You know, we were in Utah, and I asked John Tortorella a question about. It was, anchored in the success of the organization and him being new to it, and kind of, did he marvel at how things worked and the way the organization ran and as a result and had the results that it did. And he did. He said, it's been pretty fun to come here, and I've known George for a long time, just getting to know Kelly, but you come in and right away it almost hits you over the head, from Bill Foley to George McPhee to Kelly McCrimmon to the coaching staff and all the players, that it's all about winning. And it's one thing for Bill Foley to pronounce we're going to win. He's got to put the people in place that have the skills, and I probably should say that have the will, and B, the skills. Like, everyone wants to win. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, you got to have the courage to make tough decisions,
and you got to be smart.
Yeah, it's got to be the right decision too. Yeah,
and Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee have made the right decision overwhelmingly, more than not.
Yeah, courage of their convictions.
Like, no, I always say this. I had an argument with another general manager for another team who was mad at me about something I'd written.
Uh-huh.
And I said, no one bats 1,000.
No.
And
maybe the Canadians in the 70s for a few years, but other than that,
he quickly said to me, "You sure don't." But
dude, I thought we were talking about hockey.
It is hockey. But they. Again, no one bats 1,000, but these guys are their on base percentage is very good.
And I would say, Gary, that we've lived through it for 9 years now, and so many of the Golden Knights fans have lived through it as well. We're reminded of it more acutely when someone from the outside joins the organization, because with respect to the other 31 clubs, it's not exactly the same elsewhere. And if you haven't lived through it, whether it's a player or a coach, a member of the staff, front office, you see the change in those people when they come here and they see what it's like to live it. You can talk about it. Obviously, the players talk, but it's another thing to live through it. And as we've talked about here, there have been several Golden Knights players who've made an impact, and one of whom, Mitch Marner, is up to 16 points in the Stanley Cup playoffs now. It's amazing how in just the last couple of road games, he has collected these 8 points. It's just astonishing that big players step up in big moments, and he has done that, of course, the hat trick in the previous game, which was Game 3.
I would love to be a fly on the wall. Listen, I've said this elsewhere. Like, I would have loved to have been around Craig Berube after he had 4 or 5 Bud Lights full of truth serum some point in time last summer after they'd lost Mitch Marner. After they'd elected, they could have been a little more proactive and tried to re-sign him or trade him for a bigger bounty before his no trade kicked in. They didn't, and then they got to late in the game last year, and it was determined that he was not going to extend there, so they were going to trade him, and they traded him to Vegas for the rights to Nick Waugh, who then they've already moved on from, and who, by the way, is also having a very nice playoff with the Colorado Rockies. But they moved the wrong guy. Moving on from Mitch Marner was massively damaging to the Toronto Maple Leafs, affected them in their regular season. They didn't make the playoffs, and now they've had this stroke of luck and are going to be able to draft first overall on a draft that's very good. The first 3 players that are available are all going to be very good ones. All that, like my guess is Gavin McKenna and the Swedish kid, I can't think of his name right now, Ivor. Help me with his last name. You don't know it? Okay. And then the big defenseman from Western Canada. All these guys are probably going to play in the National Hockey League next year. So the Leafs, they got options. They could just say, we're not going to overthink this. McKenna is a real good player. We're going to select him and put him on a wing with Austin Matthews, and off we go. Or they could trade down. Lots of options for them. But they're not, none of those routes are getting them Mitch Marner. And if McKenna is as good as Mitch Marner, well, then good for them. That will be he just is an elite player who is producing at a very high rate. But, we heard John Tortorella say a number of times that, he does so many things other than what he does with the puck that make him special. And I'll tell you this, I know from talking to people in Toronto, he was a huge piece of that dressing room as well, like a major leader in Toronto, and has established a real presence in the dressing room in Vegas right off the bat as well.
Yeah, he's a confident guy, and naturally, when you have success individually and as a team, it just sort of steamrolls. And hat tricks, 7 Golden Knights hat tricks in the playoffs over the years. I was somewhat surprised, Gary, to go back and discover that only once before has a Knight had a 4-point game. It actually was 3 players, but it happened in the same game.
Yeah.
It was against the San Jose Sharks back in 2019. Mark Stone, Paul Stastny, and Max Pacioretty each had 4 points, plus 2 of those guys had 5 points, but that was the only playoff game, and as I mentioned, 116 of them now. And those were the only players who had 4 points in a game in the playoffs, and all happened in the same game, and then Marner did it the other day, and followed it up, by the way, with a 3-assist game in Game 4. So the numbers are there for Mitch Marner. The trouble, though, is that the Knights did not win Game 4. They had an impressive start to Game 3. It was a 5-0 advantage for the Golden Knights before the Ducks had a pushback, and they got it to within 5-2. Knights got an empty netter in Game 3 and a 6-2 final score, but the Ducks managed to score first in Game 4, and though the Knights tied it a few times, tied it at 1-1, tied it at 2-2, well, they couldn't quite keep up that pace. Ducks made it 4-2, and though the Knights got a 3rd goal late, Tomas Hertl, in the final minutes, the Knights could not find that 4th goal to equalize things, and the Ducks tie the series. So it's 2-2. It's now a best of 3, and the Knights will play their next home game, the next game of the series, tomorrow. That is Tuesday evening, 6:30 Pacific time, and then back to Anaheim 2 days after that, so the 14th, and that'll be Game 6, and then, if necessary, T-Mobile Arena back here in Las Vegas for Game 7 on the 16th. So If it's an even number day, you know it's a Golden Knights game. There's no extra day at any point in this series. It's just every other game. So with that, we can remind you, Gary, that there are tickets available, and they start at $112 if you act quickly. So act quickly, experience the best playoff atmosphere, and watch your guys in gold hit the ice. Visit NHL.com/Golden Knights/tickets for more information today. Again, 6:30 tomorrow, Game 5, T-Mobile Arena, 6:30 Pacific time. Tickets starting at $112 if you act quickly. So check it out while you can. Listen to us and get your tickets. It's a great atmosphere as always. And it's interesting how the home ice has gone back and forth. And, you know, when the series is going one way, Gary, the coaches will lean into, oh, it's great to be on the road. And then if it's going the other way, wow, it's great to be back home. It's just the nature of the playoffs, the back and forth nature of it.
Absolutely. You have to make sure you don't overreact, right?
Yeah.
You know, after a loss, you want to make adjustments, but you don't want to, to use a cliche, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So there is something to be careful about. And I actually think Vegas, you can make an argument that they should have won last night. They led the game in high danger scoring chances. They created a lot offensively. I think that Carter Hart probably would have liked to have stopped one or two of the pucks that got by him. Not that any of them were bad goals, but Carter had been on a streak where he'd only allowed 2 or less for 4 straight, and then allowed 4 in that game. The other side of that coin is that the Golden Knights didn't capitalize on as many chances as they could have. Some nights you need to pick your goalie up, and I think Carter could have been would probably say he would like to have been a little bit better, and I think the offense would say they would have liked to have been a little bit better. So I think you need to take a step for the next game, but you can't panic. Now, it will be interesting to see what they do with their lineup. They put, we don't know the status of Mark Stone for the next game. So
we'll get to that.
Okay,
and,
great.
and just to continue on your thoughts in game number 4, they give up 4 goals. 2 of those 4 were power play goals. The Knights had given up exactly 1 power play goal the entire postseason. 1 power play goal allowed in 9 games, and that was to the Utah Mammoth. The Ducks basically beat the Oilers because their power play was 50%. They had 8 power play goals in their first round series. They had not scored a power play goal against the Knights until the 2 in Game 4. Vegas had killed 21 straight power plays. 21 straight. Franchise record was 22. So Knights do score a power play goal themselves. The Ducks get 2. And basically, that's the difference. The special teams was, in the goal scoring anyhow, the difference in the outcome of the game.
Yeah, and, we had talked a lot on the radio. And by the way, you can listen to Dan and I every game on the radio, every game that the Golden Knights play. Dan and I are there. The Ducks' power play had been effective. Joel Quenneville said it this way: we're not losing momentum as a result of our power plays, except when they gave up a shorthanded goal.
Knights did get a shorthanded goal. That was McNabb from Marner in Game 3,
which really kind of propelled Vegas to that win. Like really kind of got them going.
Yeah, that was the second of the 5 goals.
Five goals. Yeah. So I thought Vegas was flirting with danger by taking as many penalties as they had, like 3 or less.
Yeah.
To me, is where you want to be, and
because they were the least penalized team, fewest times shorthanded in the regular season, 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Now they are playing a fast team that can put you in bad positions, but I think they got to be a little more careful with their sticks. There's been a lot of high sticking calls.
Yeah.
That certainly is a factor, and obviously Anaheim, they're going to be feeling pretty good about their power play coming in to Game 5. So keeping them off the power play is a really good start for Vegas.
Yeah, the 2 power play goals in Game 4, they had also scored 2 power play goals in Game 4 against the Edmonton Oilers, and that put them up 3-1 in that series. So this series is now tied 2-2. The Knights had a win in Game 1. Ducks tied at 1-1. Knights took a 2-1 series lead, and now the Ducks have tied at 2-2. So it's now a best-of-3 series with Game 5 coming up tomorrow at T-Mobile Arena, as we mentioned. And Mark Stone did not play. That was the first game that he missed in its entirety We know that he exited early in Game 3. It was in the last minutes of the first period, and at that point the Knights had a 2-0 lead. Shortly after Mark exited, the Knights made it 3-0 with a late power play goal en route to a 6-2 win in Game 3. But Stone in the playoffs with 7 points, 3 goals, 4 assists, and playing just a hair under 20 minutes per game. And that number is, of course, impacted by the fact that he only played under 5 minutes and was injured in Game 3. So Mark Stone unavailable for Game 4. We don't have an update on his potential for Game 5. John Tortorella and some players expected to meet the media at City National Arena today. So if there's any news from that, we will pass it along to you. Last game, Dorothea played with Barbashev and Eichel on the top line where Mark Stone has been, and we will get to some lineup discussions. There's been an interesting mix on the Vegas second line and a debut in the postseason on the Knights' third line, and some other lineup things to discuss as we move along here on Nighttime at noon. Again, it's Game 5 tomorrow at T-Mobile Arena, Knights and Ducks at 6:30, and you can get your tickets online. Once more, they're starting at $112, and you can visit nhl.com/goldenknights/tickets for more information. Hope to see you at the Fortress. Just watching the end of that Montreal-Buffalo game last night. We're in the booth there in Anaheim, Gary. We're getting ready for the Knights and Ducks, watching warm-ups, but we're also keeping an eye on the other playoff games, and it's just so neat to see the reactions of the crowd in these when the home team does something cool, and like the Canadians did yesterday. Just it's great, and obviously that happens so often at T-Mobile Arena too.
Yeah, they've got some spring hockey in Montreal in the spring. There's a about it. There's an excitement about it, and it's going full force right now. They haven't had a team to cheer on like this. Obviously they went to the final in 2020 at the expense of the Golden Knights, but then 21, but then really kind of bottomed out after that, and then this is to getting to the second round, and now having a lead in that series. It was electric in Montreal. The loudest I have ever been in a building in the NHL, and it's in the early 2000s. It was Game 3 of a series between Philadelphia and Montreal. It was the first game in Montreal, and it was so loud in that building. Golden Knights and the Chicago Blackhawks playoff games come in for me right after them. When Vegas, there's been some nights in Vegas where it has been
oh my goodness,
really, really loud. We haven't hit that zenith just yet in this postseason, but
now's the time.
Yeah, now's the time. And
it's possible the Knights only have one more home game.
Yeah.
Right? If they were to lose Game 5, they could lose Game 6 in Anaheim. So, folks, get on board now. I mean,
if you were saving your lungs,
you got to get on board. Yeah.
If you're saving your lungs, don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Now's the time to be full throat.
Yeah, and of course, when we talk about the 21 playoff series, when the Knights play the Canadians, that was when in Canada they were limiting the crowd size.
Yeah.
That was not the case in Las Vegas in the spring of that year, but when the Canadians beat the Knights in overtime, there were only, I think, 2,500 people roughly inside Bell Center. Outside, there were 100,000 people celebrating. Great series. And incidentally, that was the last time that the Knights had a tie series 2-2 through 4 games when they started the series at home. And they'll try to change history here a little bit.
I just want to read a stat to you because you were talking about all those playoff games that the Golden Knights have played.
Sure, yeah.
So Shea Theodore he ranks 163rd all time in playoff games played.
Wow.
He's played 135. How many do you play with Anaheim? You know this.
Yeah, and it's just, I'd have to look it
just
on my
couple,
sheet. He's
right?
only missed one Golden Knights playoff game.
Yeah,
so that means he's played 115 Golden Knights playoff games, so do the math there.
Yeah, so 20. Yeah. So he's 163rd. He's barely 30.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he just turned 30.
Yeah. And got lots to come ahead of him, hopefully. So that's wild that he's that high up the list.
Yeah, remember those Ducks teams won 5 division championships in a row.
Yeah.
And then Vegas came along. Ducks made it into the playoffs in 2018. Knights did not see them. They got bounced by the Sharks. Knights beat the Sharks in the second round. It is amazing that the Knights have had only a few Pacific time zone playoff series. They've had now 20 playoff series, but the Kings, year one, round one. Sharks, year one, round two. Sharks again, year two, round one. And now the Anaheim Ducks. Those are the only 4 playoff series in the Pacific time zone. Knights have obviously had a lot of playoff series, but these playoff series are closer to home. Okay, we must take a break and pay some bills. So we'll step aside. Lots more to come, lots to discuss on this playoff edition of Nighttime at Noon on Fox Sports Las Vegas. Welcome back, everybody. Dan D'Uva, Gary Lawless coming to you from City National Arena inside Studio 31 here in Summerlin, coming up on 12:24 Pacific Time. Knights and Ducks playing the second round of the Stanley Cup playoff series, tied 2-2. Ducks with a victory last night, 4-3, after the Knights had taken a series lead in Game 3, a 6-2 win. But the Ducks led 1-0 and never trailed, though the Knights tied it a couple of times. Plenty to discuss here. We'll get to the lineups in a moment on Nighttime at Noon and get Gary's perspective. First, we want to tell you about Season 10 ticket memberships. They're on sale now for the 26-27 season. Season 10, oh my word. Memberships start at $50 per seat for the upper level, $135 per seat for the lower level, and $288 per seat for the Center Ice Club. To get more information on Season 10 tickets, visit nhl.com/Golden Knights/tickets. Season 10 coming in October. By the way, 84 games starting next year. They're moving from 82 to 84. They cut down on the preseason a little bit. 84 regular season games. More hockey. Can't complain about that. By the way, same website to get your playoff tickets, nhl.com/Golden Knights/tickets.
Is this the job that you've held the longest?
Oh, by
in
far.
your young career?
Yeah. How
It's
about you?
not quite, but it's getting close.
Yeah. No,
I was 15 years at the Winnipeg Free Press.
Yeah, I was 5 years in the American League, 3 years in the ECHL, and that's it. So, yeah, I know you want to throw in the Cape Cod Baseball League where they just can't get rid of me. I mean, that's now like 23 years, but I'm not calling the games there anymore like it was in college. Another story, sidebar, folks. So this is what happened. You know, if you were to join Gary and me on the road, you'd have all these random non sequiturs while we were just watching games at a restaurant or a bar or sitting on the bus or in a hotel lobby, whatever it is. How we get from one topic to the next, it's hard to fathom. But
since you bring it up,
okay.
Dan and I and a large group of people are having dinner at a restaurant on Thursday night in Southern California, and Wolfgang Puck walks up to Dan,
right.
And it's like old home week. They judge.
We go way back.
They judge some cooking show together, and
he's fantastic. Wolfgang's It just, I mean, we know him, of course. He's been connected with the Knights organization. His last name is Puck, after all.
That's what he said to us.
Yeah, he said he still has the jersey. We gave him a jersey some years back, and he still has it, and wonderful to see him. But
he knew who you were.
Well, we did work together, so I suppose that's reason enough.
Great.
And he's a gem. Just to be around him, just to see. I remember when we did a cooking show a few years back, how kind he is to the people adjusting the lights and the cameras. And television is a lot of hurry up and wait unless it's live hockey. But when you're doing a cooking show, it can be a little bit more deliberate. He's great and a wonderful ambassador for the city of Las Vegas as well.
You don't want to get a reputation as being a diva with the people doing the lighting and the sound, etc. in television.
No, and Wolfgang is not that. Why, do you know somebody?
I'm not going to mention any names.
All right, but anyhow, we had a wonderful time.
No one that works here.
No. But thanks, of course, to Wolfgang, Tom, and the whole crew there. Spago, it was great to make that visit, and thank you, Gary, for helping to make sure we could all get together. It was a great time. That's what's neat for us, folks, on a show like this, where Gary and I get to talk. It's just a continuation of what this sounds like when we're not calling the games. This is what it sounds like, and sometimes we come up with something interesting, and we hope you enjoy listening in on our conversation. So, Gary, what are we talking about after the game last night? Lineup. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Here Stone misses the game. Remember, he missed the last couple of games last postseason. Saad missed games last postseason. Dorofeev, but it happens every year. Guys are going to be unavailable. Jeremy Lauzon, of course, was injured in Game 6 against Utah, and now here we go again. Mark Stone unavailable for Game 4. In his absence, Pavel Dorofeev moved up to play with Jack Eichel and Ivan Barbashev. Not the first time we've seen that. What did you make out of that choice?
Yeah, I thought that line was fine. You maybe want a little bit more from them, but that's
Dorofeev's goal was on the power play, so not
ebbs and flows
line,
of a playoff series. I thought that they did a good job defensively. They weren't out for a lot against. The second line was good. They got another goal, 5-on-5 goal with a great play from Carlson to Brett Howden, who now unbelievably has 7 goals in the postseason. He scored 12 in the regular season, so good for Brett. He would trade the 7 he has now for, the 12 he had in the regular season any day.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy he is. So
2 of those are shorthanded, by the way, including an overtime winner.
Yeah, the third line is the one that is kind of interest. Like Hurdle did get a goal. And it came at 6-on-5. It didn't come at 5-on-5. So, they need more out of the third line. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, there frankly is nothing that's come from the third line offensively.
Yeah.
Which is not to say there hasn't been some stuff that they've done, but you need to score goals at this point.
Yeah, and they were saying that themselves yesterday.
Right.
The guys in the third line were like, we need to do more than just eat minutes and check. It's the playoffs. We gotta contribute. So,
and that in last game was Brandon Saad making his postseason debut this year, his 112th career playoff game. I mentioned that last year he was injured during the second round, so played 8 out of the 11 playoff games last year. Saad had not played in 29 days, so he's on the left wing. Hurdle at center, and Keegan Colasar on the right wing. That's the line that we're talking about.
Yeah, so the immediate option is Riley Smith, who played the whole first round.
2 assists in 6 games.
Of course, the other option, we have no idea where this sits because John Tortorella has stated a number of times he is not talking about injuries. So we have no idea what the status of Jeremy Lauzon is, and we have no idea what the status of Mark Stone is. So, for all we know, we come to the rink tomorrow and they're both ready to go. And if that's the case, then I think it's pretty simple. Saad comes out, Stone goes in. Do you tinker more than that? Do you give Riley another look? And now that Henderson is done, Braden Bowman played 48 games, regular season games for the Golden Knights, had 12 goals. He did not lose his job due to poor play. It was Carter Hart returned and they need the salary cap space, so they had to send Braden, who does not require waivers at this stage. They had to send him to Henderson, where he then went and continued his excellent play, had a real dominant finish to the regular season and carried that over into the playoffs where he was excellent as well. So there are options, and I'm sure there's a ton of conversations going on behind closed doors today. And, Kelly McCrimmon, George McPhee, and John Tortorella will be, they'll be talking to the entire hockey operations staff, looking to figure out what they want to do. And it might be the status quo. Saad did hit a crossbar last night. If it's a couple inches lower, that's a goal. And then we're not talking about this at all. We're probably talking about what happened in overtime. And, but that isn't the case. So I would imagine there's conversations going right now about whether or not they make a tweak, whether they make a bigger change, how all of this goes. Plus, the health of the players that didn't play last night. That'll be conversation number one. Are these guys going to be able to play? And if they are, then you start going from there.
Yeah, Gary, in the back and forth nature of a playoff series, you look at lines canceling one another out. When we come back, I want to ask you about that. We've heard about the defensive prowess of Jack Eichel and William Karlsson. Sure, the offense, but how they might eliminate scoring threats from the opposing side of things. I want to talk about that when we come back. First, we're going to step aside. Lots to get to still. We've got about halfway through our program here on this Monday, the 11th of May. It's a Stanley Cup playoff edition of Nighttime at Noon. We'll be back in just a moment on Fox Sports Las Vegas. Welcome back, everybody. 12:36 Pacific Time. Coming to you from Studio 31 at City National Arena in Summerlin. Dan D'Uva, Gary Lawless, nighttime at noon. Stanley Cup Playoff Edition. Second round. 4 games down. Maximum of 3 to go. Series tied at 2-2. Game 5. T-Mobile Arena tomorrow, 6:30 Pacific Time. And you can get your tickets online. And if you hurry, you can get them for just $112. Visit the website, NHL.com, Golden Knights tickets. Again, NHL.com/Golden Knights/tickets. And tickets starting at $112 if you act quickly. Game 5 tomorrow as the Knights look to take a 3-2 series lead. Remember, first round against Utah, they had fallen behind 2-1, tied the series 2-2, and eventually winning that in 6 games, 3 wins in a row to close out the Mammoth. 5-4 in overtime, 5-4 in double overtime, and then a 5-1 standout victory. Meanwhile, the Knights in the second round started with a win against the Ducks, and they scored 3-1. They lost 3-1. Then the Knights won at 6-2, but then the Ducks winning at 4-3 last night down at Honda Center. As we roll along here, Gary Lawless, one of the themes in the Stanley Cup playoffs is always how to keep the top players off the score sheet. Well, the Ducks have not kept Mitch Marner off the score sheet. He has 9 points in the series. He leads the Stanley Cup playoffs with 16 points overall, and Brett Howden has 7 goals. That is the most, tied for the most in the Stanley Cup playoffs. A few other guys also have 7. How do you see it on the other side? How have you seen the Golden Knights try to keep the Ducks' top players off the score sheet?
Yeah, it's a good point. Someone said to me before the series, if you shut down Leo Carlsson and Cutter Gauthier, you win the series. And in the games that Vegas has won, those 2 guys have been primarily quiet. And when they've been able to roam a little bit, what did Gauthier have last night? 3 assists?
Yeah, 3 assists,
yeah.
And those are his first points in the series.
Yeah, and Carlson has been
1 goal, 1 assist for Leo Carlsson
in the series.
Yeah. 1 goal, 1 assist for Chris Kreider, and Troy Terry, no goals and 2 assists.
Yeah, so I think as the series goes on, we should expect that there'll be fewer penalties, and that is something that will be beneficial to the Golden Knights. They want to play as much 5-on-5 hockey as they can in this series. I've been impressed with Anaheim. Troy Terry can really shoot the puck. So can Leo Carlsson, Cutter Gauthier, and Seneca. Those guys all have elite shots. They take lots of shots. They can score from distance. They can just rip the puck. They can shoot the puck, and that's I can't remember seeing a team that had 4 guys that could really hammer it the way they can. So that's something that they're always a threat to score, and they use their power play to have a ton of effect of that in the first round against Edmonton. Got it going a little bit last night, although they weren't goals like that last night. It was a little different. I think the Kreider goal was really unfortunate. The puck hits the referee, and instead of going behind the net where one of the Golden Knights defensemen was waiting and would have been able to clear it down the ice, it goes right to Kreider, and he charges and goes far post and beats Carter Hart in that situation. Anyways, Vegas has done a good job, and in Game 3, when Vegas got ahead, Jack Eichel just said, "I'm taking Leo Carlsson out of this game," and he did. And now it's become a point for Joel Quenneville where it's a lot harder to get Leo Carlsson away from either Jack Eichel or William Karlsson. And it'll be even more difficult for him tomorrow night in Vegas when it's John Tortorella has last change.
Yeah, it's interesting because from game to game, you never know how penalties, power plays are going to impact the flow of the game. Again, you think about how Game 2 unfolded, Gary, where the Knights had to deal with all those penalties early, and they killed them all off.
Yeah.
But it totally changed the complexion of the game, where some guys were used a ton on the penalty kill, and other guys were just sitting there on the bench. And so the whole plan of how to play the first period and get off to a good start, all of that's sort of out the window, and the Knights never fully recovered in a 3-1 loss.
Yeah, that flow that you're talking about, it's something that John Tortorella has talked about a lot. Coaches use the term "I lost a guy" or "I lost a
Right.
couple of guys." When it's all special teams, it's hard to keep everybody involved in the game. And Vegas uses a lot of different people to kill penalties, but there are a handful of guys that don't. And you don't want Dorofeev, Barbashev, players of that ilk sitting on the bench for long stretches. Those are the guys that do damage for you. They need to be on the ice if you're going to score goals. So that has certainly been a factor in games for Vegas, and Tortorella has got to try to guard against that. But the players can help him by not taking any penalties.
On the Ducks side, Gary, Lukáš Dostal was pulled in Game 3, played 20 minutes, gave up 3 goals on 8 shots. Ville Husso played the rest of the game and gave up a couple more goals than an empty netter. Dostal was the choice to go back in for Game 4. I wonder, I think Dostal's going to play Game 5.
Yeah.
But perhaps, a shot in the arm in a series where there's no days off, that Dostal, he only played 20 minutes. He didn't do very well. It's not exactly a full day of work when you get pulled after 20.
Yeah, I would say that Vegas has the edge in goaltending in this series. I think Carter's been better than Dostal, and I would expect that to continue. I think Carter, if you go back to the series against Utah, what game did they lose where they gave up the first 4 goals on 8 shots? Game 3, the first game in Utah. And then he won 3 straight after that and
Right.
was, 2 of them were one in overtime, one in double overtime. He was tremendous the rest of the way in that series and really good in the closeout game. So, my guess is that Carter will be very sharp in Game 5 and difficult to beat. And, that's an edge for Vegas. I think the Golden Knights have kind of figured out a way to get to Dostal, and they had 6 the other night. Well, one was an empty net, but then even in a losing effort, they had 3 last night. It's 4.5
Yeah.
or a night over the last 2 games.
And it's the first time the Knights have scored 3 goals in a playoff game this year and lost.
Yeah.
So we'll not likely see that very often.
No.
Last question about the Ducks, Gary, how they've utilized their depth. They had a different third pair last game. Radko Gudas was a game-time decision, did not play. Haven't seen that defenseman since Game 1 of the first round. The other defenseman, Helleson, was injured, so unavailable. He couldn't go. Tyson Hines was scratched. Helleson and Hines was the third pair. They were replaced by Owen Zellweger and Ian Moore. Ian Moore is a defenseman, but he's been playing as a forward for weeks. And wouldn't you know that it's Ian Moore and Owen Zellweger who combine on what ends up as the game-winning goal. Ian Moore scored it. Zellweger got an assist, his first ever playoff game. Moore's first playoff game as a defenseman and his first playoff point.
It'll be interesting to see what Quenneville does, because I bet Gudas is ready to go tomorrow. You'll have a decision. Do you want to put him in at this stage of the series on the road? It's another thing to do it at home when you have last change. And, if there's certain situations you don't like, you could shelter Radko a little bit more in that situation. Or, for all I know, for them, it's just a no-brainer. He's their captain. When he's ready to go, they're going to put him back in. He is a violent player, plays on the edge. There's lots to like about Radko Gudas if he's on your team. There's a ton to not like about Radko Gudas if he plays on the other side. He can be reckless at times.
Yeah.
He plays for keeps. Again, lots to like about him. Not the most mobile guy at this stage of his career.
Never was.
Yeah, but smart and knows where
yeah.
to be, right?
And intense, yep.
Yeah, like we talked about Braden McNabb during a penalty kill session last night where he blocked a shot, then grabbed the puck and cleared it. And I think I said on the broadcast, who's a better penalty kill player on the blue line in the NHL right now? Who's better at it than Braden McNabb? There's no one.
Nobody, yeah.
He's so good.
Yep.
And the numbers support that.
And I'd like to point this out. There's one player since 17-18, one player who has over 1,400 block shots and 1,400 hits. His name is Braden McNabb. He's the only player. Jacob Trouba is close Darnell Nurse is not too far behind, but McNabb is the only guy who's at 1,400 of both hits and block shots.
I don't think anybody's ever done 2,000, and I think that Braden is. I'd have to check that. Maybe Chris Chelios. He played till he was 80, and effectively,
We'll see.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, we'll have to run the numbers on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yep.
So there is a little sense of what to keep an eye on as we get ready for Game 5 tomorrow. We're also going to take a look at the other playoff series here in the second round. One series is over, and the other series are at 2-1. Montreal hosting Buffalo, and Minnesota taking on Colorado. We'll talk about those series when we come back. Again, it's nighttime at noon on Fox Sports Las Vegas. $12:50 Pacific Time. Dan D'Uva, Gary Lawless here on Nighttime at Noon, Fox Sports Las Vegas. It's a postseason edition of Nighttime at Noon. And, of course, if you're headed to the Golden Knights playoff games, we remind you about the new VGK Locals menu available at all the home games. Menu features hot dogs, nachos, water, fountain soda, pretzels, and popcorn for just $5.50 each. $5.50 each. Season ticket members also receive an additional 10% off on all concessions, and that includes the VGK Locals menu. 6:30 tomorrow, Game 5, series tied 2-2. Gary, there are 3 other second-round series. One of them is over. Already a sweep for the Ottawa Senators, getting knocked out by the Carolina Hurricanes It is 8-0 for Carolina. They defeated the Philadelphia Flyers in the second round, an overtime victory the other day. So 4 wins against Ottawa, 4 wins against the Flyers, and it's not happened before in this era of the format where, it takes 4 games to win a round, going back to 1987 to start 8-0. It hasn't happened in this way ever before.
2 ways to look at this. Obviously, Carolina, the overarching sentiment is that Carolina's really good. Great team. Getting good goaltending. They've got some nice pieces on the blue line. A great coach. They're going good. They've not faced any adversity. And, depending how long Montreal and Buffalo goes, they could be off 10 days. Like, it's basically spring break for them. How does Rod Brind'Amour keep them in tune? Mm-hmm. Do they get rusty? And then when they do face adversity, if they do, having not faced it, how do they handle it? So it's uncharted territory. They'll be doing some thinking in Carolina on how to stay at their peak.
Yeah, and Ottawa and Philadelphia at different points were not playoff teams during the season. Of course, They qualified and got in. Meanwhile, Carolina was basically number 1 in the East, wire to wire. They will face the winner of Buffalo-Montreal. We talked a little bit earlier about Montreal's exciting victory at home at Bell Center against Buffalo, and the Sabres who got the first one. Montreal looks pretty darn good, Gary.
Montreal's got more players chipping in right now, than Buffalo does. Buffalo's got some players that have gone quiet. I know Tage Thompson did score yesterday, but Buffalo has to, some players have to resurface if they're going to beat Montreal.
They've been outscored 11-3 in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
It was 5-1 in Game 2 for Montreal in Buffalo, then 6-2 yesterday, Montreal over the Sabres. Game number 4 of that series is tomorrow in Montreal. The Canadiens try to take a 3-1 series lead. So that's the Eastern Conference. Gary, back out west, the Colorado Avalanche started the playoffs 6-0. Winning their first-round series against the Kings, and then 9-6 against Minnesota in Game 1, 5-2 in Game 2, but then Minnesota, with a big-time pushback, defeated the Avalanche 5-1 on Saturday, and Game 4 of that series is tonight.
Yeah, and big news just came out of Minnesota. Jared Bednar has announced that he's making a change in net. Wedgwood is out, Blackwood is in. Wedgwood he's won 6 games already in the playoffs. So we'll see what that move does. How, that's a veteran team. They're not going to look at it as a panic move. They're going to view it as we have 2 really good goalies.
They used both of them throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. But Blackwood has not played a ton in the playoffs just yet. We'll see how he certainly played in Game 1 of this series. We'll see how this is handled by the Avalanche and their players and how Blackwood performs.
Regular season, Blackwood was 23-10-2 and has not yet started a game in this postseason. He did start 7 games last year for the Avalanche and was 3-4 as Colorado remade its goaltending from a couple years ago.
He's their guy. Just Wedgwood. Blackwood was injured to start the season.
Yeah.
Wedgwood just got off to a great start and would never give up the job. And
what a problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So now they're making the switch there, and this becomes a huge storyline tonight.
And Minnesota not only wins Game 3, Gary, but pretty impressive win. It seems to me that series. There's that series, even though Colorado won the first 2, that series could go a while.
Yeah, I got a text from somebody after Vegas had won Game 3 to go up 2-1. They were like, it's a friend who cheers for teams other than Vegas. He just basically like, you guys are going to win this series, but I'm going to be so happy when Colorado stomps you in the conference finals.
Geez.
And I was like, well, let's see if both teams get there first.
Yeah, one thing at a time. Yeah, could
Yeah.
be Minnesota, Anaheim.
I bet you it's 2-2 after the game in Minnesota tonight. I'll be watching that
Of
one.
course, it could be Vegas, Colorado. Knights defeated Colorado in the playoffs in the second round in 2021.
Could be a lot
course.
of options.
Yeah.
There's 4 teams still very much alive in the Western Conference.
Indeed. That's a wrap on our broadcast today. A reminder, Game 5 tomorrow, 6:30 Pacific time. We'll have the radio broadcast here on Fox Sports Las Vegas. Thank you for tuning in to this broadcast of Nighttime at Noon. Thanks to Katie, Luis, Chavez, Bella. Welcome, Bella. And for Golden Knights insider Gary Lawless, Dan D'Uva saying so long from City National Arena. Enjoy the playoffs, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow, 6:30 on Fox Sports Las Vegas.